On this episode of GroupCollect The Podcast, Anna Sampers talks about her unique journey to the world of software engineering and the work she does developing those little improvements you've been noticing in the GroupCollect Register system lately. Also, a chat with Greg Bottenhorn of Jassby, a gentleman who wants to help your group trips go cashless as much as he wants to share with you his preferences for high-end bourbon. Plus, GroupCollect Register has a jingle now? It's all right here on this month's episode of GroupCollect The Podcast. All right, everybody, welcome to GroupCollect The Podcast. This is your May 2025 edition. I'm your host, Eric Young, coming to you as always from Orlando, Florida. And I am joined by my co-hosts, Ryan Kramer in Weymouth, Massachusetts, Kathleen Wiles from our company headquarters in St. Augustine, Florida, and our very special co-host today, everyone, GroupCollect developer, Anna Sampers. Team, how are we doing today?
Doing great.
Thrilled to have Anna here with us. Real life celebrity here on the call. How cool.
It's
I'm
true.
thrilled to be here.
We are constantly fawning over the development team, so it's really quite a privilege to have one of them on the show. So thank you for being here, Anna. We have a really awesome show. In general, we're going to be talking about Questionnaires updates in GroupCollect Register. And Anna, why it is so special to have you here is that you were just working on these developments, were you not?
Yes, I was. I was just working on them. Yeah. So the main development that I have been working on is making optional questionnaires with only optional questions appear to all passengers who go through onboarding. Previously, they did not show up. And so that I was tasked with making them show up. And so I did.
Which was not an easy task.
No, it was not. Yeah, it was very complicated. I got in there and tried a bunch of things and broke some stuff in the process and then fixed it along the way. But yeah, now they will show up for everyone, which honestly I'm very excited about because it feels like something that should have always been happening, but wasn't, but now it will be. So hopefully the tenants and the passengers are happy and enjoy the optional questionnaires. They're still optional. You don't have to answer them, but now you will see them.
Yes. Big win.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say all of that when you were explaining it sounded really simple.
Yes. Yeah.
But can you tell us, for someone who, like myself, who is completely ignorant to the world of coding, why was this a complicated undertaking?
So, well, what made it a little bit more complicated was we wanted to be able to show the optional questionnaires to passengers, but if they didn't answer them, which they don't have to answer them, obviously they're optional. If they didn't answer them, then we did not want for the tenants any alert to happen that says, you have passengers that are missing information. And so the ability to show them, but then have them not be answered and have that not count as missing information was a very do this here, but do this other thing here. Don't tell this side of the code that we're counting it here, but not over there. Just a real workaround of essentially touching the same piece of code in 3 different ways, depending on where it's showing up on the page and to who. So yeah, that is why it was very complicated. And then there's a bunch of trips in there already, and we didn't want to mess up those current trips. So then finding a way to have this apply to trips in the future or trips that have enough time to allow the passengers to go in and see the optional questionnaires. That was a whole nother thing.
Now, to that point, Ryan, as the major liaison between the development team and the customer and user-facing team, can you talk a little bit about that whole process of the decision of how to navigate that minefield of making this change that was, one that the system really was going to benefit from, but with active trips in the system and deciding on the dates of when these things are going to go into effect. Talk to us about that whole side of the project.
Absolutely, and I'm so fortunate because, I've got two colleagues sitting right here with us who you just couldn't ask for better people to work with, Anna on the dev side and Kathleen on the client facing side, just because both of them, both of you are just so good at kind of clearly communicating what the needs are for your respective ends of the equation. So just to kind of illustrate how this all kind of came to light is this fact that questionnaires with only optional questions were not being viewed got reported to Kathleen's team through our help desk. And that got brought to my attention at that point. And we very quickly, when our engineer on call, saw, well, maybe there's a quick fix for this, we quickly were able to ascertain exactly kind of what Anna was expressing there, that nope, this is a whole thing right here. So at that point, that was my cue to step in and look at kind of our roadmap and said, this is something we need to schedule to do work on. We should not attempt to do this as what we would call a bug fix, where we just kind of try to deploy a quick solution to patch something up.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I have a meeting with Anna to make sure I fully understand kind of what her considerations are, make sure that she fully understands kind of what the need is, and then Anna and I work together to put a project together in our project management software to kind of keep each other accountable for everything going on there. And then at that point, kind of while Anna is hard at work, fixing the code, Kathleen and I have a series of meetings where we kind of talk about what the cascading implications of an update like this are going to look like. And the big question that Kathleen and I strive to answer in these meetings is, how do we need to communicate this?
Mm-hmm.
And, is this something where it is going to disproportionately impact certain clients other than others? So at that point, we start looping Anna back in. We'll asynchronously reach out to her and say, hey, while you're working on this, can you pull a quick query and help us understand what the impact of this is going to be? Kathleen and I spend a lot of time talking about this would be a great thing to talk about on the podcast. We use this as a very real mechanism right here. And then usually, and this is something that, kind of stands alone in our business that is not always normal on a software as a service team, is there's usually one final meeting kind of as we get ready for deployment where Kathleen and Anna and I all meet together, kind of myself as the, from the product side and Anna from the engineering side and Kathleen from the customer side can kind of fully sign off on what it's going to look like when this is live in production, what the communications are going to look like, get everything documented. And yeah, it goes to show you, as you said at top of show there, Eric, everything on the surface seems simple when you talk about the change that was made. But really, this, what is, on the surface, a very minor change takes, several weeks of careful work and coordination. And it's our pleasure to do it because we want the app to be working spectacularly for all of you who are listening here.
Yeah, that was a beautiful explanation of what happens behind the curtain, Ryan. So
Yeah.
well done. I
That was
love
the
it.
GroupCollect sausage being made right there. The story of it for
We're,
sure.
we're transparent on this podcast. That's,
I
that's
mean,
yeah.
this is the nature of the show. Now to bring it full circle, now I have a two-part question here for Kathleen. So, number one, are there, especially since you all talked about using the podcast as a platform to talk about this development, what are the messages that you want to get out there about this development? And I forgot what the second part of my two-part question was. So let's just start with that for right now.
Well, the biggest thing is that we want to make sure if it's optional, they're still seeing it in the first place. So a few of you have come to us saying, it's hard going after these passengers, getting them to answer these questions, and you're doing a lot of the work. after they've registered and just trying to, follow your lists and nail down and contact them individually, when if they would just see it from the beginning, 9 times out of 10, they're going to answer it right away. So we are hoping to make your life a lot easier by showing these questions right from the get-go, because if someone has a passport and they have their number, chances are they'll fill it in right when they're being asked.
Well, that actually was, this is why you're a wonderful teammate, is because that was the second part of my two-part question, which is, what do you think is the major benefit for users for this development, to bring it all full circle? And I think you've expressed that very eloquently. So yeah, so that is the Questionnaires update in a nutshell. Again, we are just so stoked to have Anna here talking about it, since she has been the engine behind the project on the development side. Team, we are going to take a short commercial break, and we are going to be back with Anna Sampers in just a bit. We're going to learn a little bit more about her background and more about her as a person. So stick with us for the next segment of GroupCollect the Podcast. This message is brought to you by the GroupCollect organization. GroupCollect. Plan group travel better.
Planning travel is tough when you got big groups and you're trying to plan the trip of their dreams. Yeah, you tried other ways, but they're all kind of rough. I'll tell you just what you need. It's GroupCollect Register for all of your group travel planning needs. GroupCollect Register for all your group travel planning needs.
GroupCollect Register is a software platform for group travel professionals that allows passengers to register and pay for their trips on the World Wide Web. It also helps group travel planners view, organize, and communicate with their passengers after registration. GroupCollect Register, a group travel software solution so advanced, it's freaking me out.
It's GroupCollect Register for all of your group travel planning needs. GroupCollect Register for all your group travel planning needs.
GroupCollect Register, the group trip maker. All right, everyone, it's Eric Young. I am just going to provide a little bit more of an explanation of what the heck you just heard. So that is our new GroupCollect Register jingle. But let's take it back and put it in context. Earlier in the month of May, GroupCollect was fortunate enough to be a sponsor of the Travel Alliance Partnership Industry Conference. It's better known as Tap Dance. It was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And what we did as sponsors during our breakfast session was we hosted a retro-themed game show that we called Industry Feud. It's very similar to Family Feud, and it was a really good time. If you were fortunate enough to actually witness the mayhem in person, we hope that you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. But it was ridiculous, and my role in all of that was to provide the commercials for the throwback game show. And so I took inspiration from the Mentos, the Fresh Maker commercials of the mid-90s. And thus the GroupCollect Register jingle that you just heard was born. I will add that there is an equally as ridiculous video that goes along with the jingle. So if you would like to see that, and I encourage you to do so, please check out GroupCollect on Facebook or YouTube. And while you are there on our YouTube channel, please be aware that GroupCollect The Podcast is now on YouTube. So you can go and check out the video and check out other episodes of this very show while you're at it. GroupCollect The Podcast is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you are not subscribed to us on your podcast player of choice at this point, then what are you waiting for? I also want to add, if you have any feedback on the show, hit me up personally. We want to hear what's on your mind about this very program. You can reach me at Eric, that's ERIK, at groupcollect.com. With that, let's get back to the show. All right, everybody, and we're back. We've got Anna Sampers here with us, front-end developer for GroupCollect. Ryan, you work super close with Anna, though, so I know we wanted to learn more about her as a person and a professional. So what kind of questions do we have for her today?
I've got all sorts of questions for my good friend Anna here, who I have the pleasure of working very closely with. So Anna, I know I kind of have my perception of what your role is on our team, but I would love how you would describe what it is that you do here to our listeners.
Yes, yes. So I am not the newest hire on the engineering team, but I am the most junior person on the engineering team. And it is also a very small, relatively small engineering team. So for me, that kind of means that I get to touch on sort of all parts of the software, all parts of the code base. And kind of, we're a very nimble small team, so I get to jump in and kind of help out wherever help is needed. So that means I have done bug fixes, I have implemented like smaller new features, I've done new email alerts, essentially anything that the customers say that they want and other people don't have the time or are working on larger projects. It sort of gets kicked over to me, and I'm happy to jump in and, as Brian, as you say, get these nice little wins. And so I really enjoyed, I feel like by the end of my first year here, I'll probably have touched on like every single part of the code, which for me is really exciting, and makes every 2 weeks, I feel like I'm working on something new and different. So I love it.
Awesome. And I think you're being way too humble, Anna, I think with kind of describing what you do there. Folks, if you're listening to this and you've noticed some improvements to our software over the past few months, and you've noticed like this thing that's always bothered me has suddenly been fixed, and like, you know what, this is just so nice. This is just such a nice feature. It is a 99% chance that the woman I'm talking to now is the person who made that a reality, who actually went in, opened up the hood, and got that taken care of. And just the net result of all of these changes has had such a major impact. And, you know, a highlight of that kind of every 2 week development cycle, you and I get to take a look together at what the clients are saying, what we're hearing from Kathleen and the team there, and strategize about like how can we get the biggest win in the shortest amount of time here. And it's just I appreciate all the work that you're doing. So Anna, with that being said,
I just wanted to add that humility will not be tolerated on this podcast, Anna. So you better get used to gloating about all of your accomplishments and talents.
We'll try to do better in the future.
minus 10 points. Okay, so little dev team joke for any of them who are listening to this. Alrighty, so yeah, I'd love to hear just a little bit about, you know, your journey to I guess kind of a two-parter here. Your journey to being a software engineer and your journey to being a member of the GroupCollect team.
Yeah, I love to tell this story because I started out in a very different career than what I am in now. So, in college, I majored in film production, and for the first 13 years of my career, I worked for a film festival and I programmed short films. And yeah, essentially got paid to watch movies, which was a dream career. I loved it. It was an amazing career. I did that for 13 years. And then for many, many reasons, about 2 years ago, found myself in need of a career change. So kind of on a whim, I thought, let's try software engineering. I had never done software engineering. Previously, that is nothing that anyone in my life, I feel like, would have said, oh, you'd be really good at that. You should try that out. It kind of really came out of left field, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like it would make sense for me. And so I took 2 years and taught myself software engineering. I did a free open source curriculum that sort of took me from zero to knowing enough to get your first job. And that worked out really well for me. It allowed me to go at my own pace. And like I said, it was free. So it was a very low stakes entry point rather than, dropping a bunch of money on a boot camp or something like that. That scared me a little bit because I wasn't sure, will I like it? Will I be good at it? But as I was going through this curriculum, I found out I do really like this and I am pretty good at it. So yeah, after 2 years, I was just kind of spamming applications to any and every software engineering job that I thought I was even remotely qualified for, and came across GroupCollect and immediately loved like what the company was about. I think in the job description, it listed the company values. It listed a description of the job and everything was just green flag after green flag for me. Everything seemed like this is where I need to land. And thankfully for me, and I hope for everyone else, this is where I landed. So I'm just thrilled to be here. And I think for my first software engineering job like this, I could not have asked for a more perfect fit and a more perfect company.
Yes,
Wow.
we are very happy you are here.
Amen to that. So, Anna, I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to ask here. So, I took a little look at some statistics yesterday, and best as I can ascertain, only about 27% of software engineers do not identify as men. What would you say to someone who's listening, who may be having that thought that you were having about, making that career pivot, but that disparity may raise a flag for them?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, 100% go for it. I always like to say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you're thinking about it, take that shot. And I've thought about this. I have experienced this, obviously, as a woman in the software engineering world. That statistic is very true. And I genuinely don't fully understand or know why more women aren't in this field. There is not really any part of it that does not that a woman could not do well. I think it's really just old stereotypes that have yet to fade away. When I was growing up, computers were not really something that seemed like it was for little girls. I wasn't being told, oh, go take apart that computer and see how it works, or anything like that. So technology, computers, just growing up, it wasn't something that seemed like it was for me. I didn't see any women doing this job. And I think that is really, if you don't see yourself represented in a field, you're so much less likely to think that you can do it or to attempt to do it. So just representation is so important. And I'm so pleased that there are now, coding camps specifically for girls, and just so much more of an emphasis on let's get women into this field specifically, but women in STEM, like all of that is so needed and so important. And as I was looking this up yesterday, as I was learning coding, I saw on Instagram or Twitter or some post that said, knitting is coding, girls go get your money. And I saw that post and I was like, yeah, knitting is coding. And I've been knitting, since I was in middle school. And, like a knitting pattern is incredibly complex. But if you follow it at the end, you have a sweater or, you have a mitten or whatever. And so, yeah, just I think thinking about coding differently, and that it is open and accessible to all, and you don't have to be the stereotype that everyone thinks of to be successful at it and to enjoy it.
Anna, I really appreciate you talking about that. Do you feel that in your professional career in software engineering that you have been made to feel different as a result of being a woman in development?
100% not. That's when I've gone to meetups in my hometown for other software engineers. it's predominantly male at the, at GroupCollect, it is mostly, my fellow engineers are mostly male. But I have never once been made to feel like, what am I doing here? Or, you know, I've never been made to feel like an other. Like every software engineer I've ever talked to is the nicest person, is so incredibly welcoming, is really just like, great, can you do the work? Awesome, let's do the work together, kind of an attitude. So yeah, I welcome more women into this field because it's ready and it's waiting for you.
And
Absolutely.
that's kind of the conception that I have gotten of a lot of the developers that I've had the privilege of working with, is that they are oftentimes very intelligent, creative, and collaborative. And I feel like there would not be a whole lot of room for there to be challenges with who they're working with in that regard, that it's about getting the job done. And so it's interesting to kind of pick up on the vibe of software engineering in that way, and then also see the disparity in gender of male and female that Ryan had pointed out statistically, because it doesn't really seem like there is anything culturally about development that would discourage women from being in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think once you're in the field, yeah, it's incredibly welcoming. Everyone is so nice. And yeah, I have never been made to feel like an other or like I don't belong. So yeah, that's shout out to all of the other GroupCollect engineers. They're the nicest people.
Yes, and girl power.
Yeah.
No, I just love that. I also, when thinking in it, it really did make me think when you came on the team, like, why aren't there more women? You have to be so detail oriented, and
Mhm.
it's checks and balances and just, being a woman running a household. Like that's what we do all day, every day. Like it makes sense. And it did. I was like, yeah, we need more girls. Come on,
Yeah.
girls. You can
Yeah,
do it too.
exactly. The multitasking, yeah, it is I feel like that is a misconception about software engineering, is that it is an incredibly collaborative field. I feel like people have the perception of someone, alone in their basement typing away at their keyboard, and like there is that, but then also you hop on a Zoom call or you do a message in Slack and you need to coordinate with all of your other coworkers, and you need to, make sure that everyone is on the same page, and you can't have any ego about it because you're just trying to do what's best for the product.
What's also been incredibly encouraging and inspirational about your story is the career pivot. It is awesome to think about how you decided to make that change and then did it. I mean, especially with this being such an emergent field where there is still yet so much opportunity to come. That is super encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of discussion in the forums about, do I need a degree to become a software engineer? Will anyone hire me if I don't have a degree in software engineering? And I think more and more the answer is you don't need one. Yeah, if you put in the work, it is a field where you just have to know how to do it. And people don't really care how you learned how to do it as long as you know how to do it.
And I love that both you and our CTO Eugene are both self-taught engineers. Like
Yeah.
got good representation of that demographic on our team as well.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, Anna, I was taking a look over, we like to a little behind the scenes for you here. We love to do fun little get to know your team activities here on the GroupCollect team. And Anna, on your little get to know me sheet that we did, you gave yourself the moniker the detective at heart. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what you mean when you say you're the detective at heart and how that plays into your day-to-day in this job?
Yes. Yeah, I have always, from a very, very young age, been a detective at heart. Whether that's inventing mysteries as a child to solve. I feel like for a long time, whatever book I was reading it was always a mystery book. It was just a variation on you just swap out the characters, but it's like the same plot. It's just always whatever kind of mystery of the week book. Um, and yeah, I'm just very snoopy. I like to investigate things and, what's going on over here? Let me take a look at that. But in coding, that I have discovered that coding is essentially solving a series of mysteries. The code is the breadcrumbs that is left for you to follow. And it's just a constant, here's the larger problem that we have that we're trying to solve. Let's break that down into very small problems. And within that problem, follow the breadcrumbs, start at one part of the code base, and you have all this data, all of this information. Here you're getting this variable. Where is that variable coming from? Okay, let's follow that breadcrumb. Oh, it's coming from over here. What is it doing over here? How did it get here? Why is it here? Should it be here? Just a constant mystery. And I feel like once I have solved that mystery, then I have, completed the ticket. I've completed the project, whatever it is that I'm working on. Mystery solved. We've implemented the feature, and I can move on to the next mystery.
Amazing. I've got one last question for you, Anna, to wrap up this really, really awesome chat that we've been having here, which is that you mentioned, GroupCollect standing out to you when you were looking through applications. And something that I know stands out to all four of us on this call, is just that, the impact of travel. And the impact of, what the travel industry does on all of us and our ability to serve that industry. I would just love to hear for you, how travel has impacted your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I first started working at GroupCollect, and I saw that a lot of the trips, a lot of the tour operators were working with schools. I immediately thought back to I was a band nerd, so I went on a band trip to Disney World. I went on a band trip to New Orleans and played. I don't remember the piece, but we played some very difficult piece right on the water, and it was beautiful. And yeah, those like school trips I feel like were very formative for me. And so I hold a very special place in my heart to school travel and just the friendships that you make. And, maybe it's the first time you've been away from home or the first time you've been out of the state, and like just how exciting that trip can be. But then as I got older, right out of college, I traveled Costa Rica and Mexico for 6 months, kind of as like I recognized that at that time this is like the least amount of adult responsibilities I'm ever going to have. So let's take advantage of it and take this big, wild and crazy trip. So that was an amazing travel experience, and I feel like very formative for, seeing another part of the world and experiencing. I was in Costa Rica for like 3 months, so really got to experience how other people live. Really opened my eyes to just, the world is so big and so small at the same time, and travel connects us all. And yeah, travel is great. I love traveling. I love the experiences that it brings, and I am very happy to work for a company that allows people to travel and makes that process smoother.
Well
And
said.
and yet still, the people need to know, what instrument did you play in high school?
I played the clarinet, a very proud clarinet player.
Dig it.
It was my first, second, and third choice. I
Wow.
only wanted to play the clarinet.
You're like, give me the clarinet or I'm out. You
Exactly.
have no other options.
And my mom said, if they don't have spots for the clarinet, then that means you're not going to be in band. And I said, yeah, I know.
Right. Yeah.
I
These are
understand.
my terms.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks again, Anna. We really, really appreciate you being here on the show. We appreciate all of the transparency and everything that you've shared with us. We are going to take one more short break, and then we are going to have ourselves a little chat with our dear friend from Jassby, Mr. Greg Bottenhorn. He's going to talk to us a little bit about Jassby cards and how they are a sweet alternative to taking cash on tour. So everyone stick around for that. All right, everybody, we are here with our guest, our very special guest today, Mr. Greg Bottenhorn, CMO of Jassby. Greg, how you doing today, man?
Good, man. How are you, Eric?
Hanging in there. Why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners? Tell us about your background. Tell us about your journey to Jassby.
Sure. So I'm Greg Bottenhorn. I've been in sales and marketing and business development for really my entire life, and I kind of stumbled into it. It started, I right out of college, I worked for a sport nutrition company. I was a director of marketing, and it was awesome, and I had a blast. But it didn't necessarily teach me much about business and creating a business and building a business.
Mm-hmm.
Was a huge brand in the area. So I grew up in Massachusetts, and there was a huge brand that was growing there. It was called Monster, from monster.com.
Okay.
And it was like the 35th website on the internet, and they're the ones that took like classified ads in the newspapers and started putting jobs online. And so like they had an awesome brand, and they were growing like crazy, and everybody in marketing in Boston and Massachusetts wanted to be part of this brand. I was young, I was inexperienced, like I knew they weren't hiring me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with this plan. So one of my best friend's sisters worked for Monster every day. Like I'd be hanging out with him at his house, and she'd come home and talk about how much she loved her job. She was one of those people that you hear about that's like, oh no, I really love my job. I love waking up and going to work every day. And so she's like, hey, we have openings in my department. It's like sales lead generation type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I thought, hey, I can get in there in this department, in this opening that's hiring people like me. And then once I'm in, I'll have a better opportunity to move into their marketing department, right? So that was my thought process. So I went in to interview for this job. And the person I was interviewing with, 5 minutes into the interview, just stopped me and said, hey, look, this is great. I'm looking at your resume, and it's all marketing. So why are you here for a sales job? And I told her the same thing I just told you, right? I was very honest and said, this is why I'm here. And she looks at me and goes, that's great, but I got to ask you, I've been talking to you for 5 minutes. I think you can sell, and I want to know why you want to be in marketing when it's a marketer's job to make a salesperson rich.
Mm-hmm.
And that always stuck with me, And I'm money motivated, so I just kind of got into sales, and I ended up doing every sales role Monster had and leading their sales teams, and it was great, and I had a blast. And they moved me to South Carolina, and we lived there for years. And then I retired, left, and said, I'm done. It was super stressful. Didn't get to see my family a whole lot. So retired. We had moved down here. My wife and I are both from the Northeast. And she goes, listen, if you're not going to work for Monster anymore, I just assume move back up north. My parents are getting older. And so we did. And so I got involved in everything, Eric. Man, I did like every nonprofit group, my kids played sports. And so I was, I coached football, and I was on the football boards and all this. And so one of the groups that I was on the board of, I was the president. One of my directors, actually, I was president of football and cheer, and my director of flag football pulled me aside after a meeting. He's like, listen, it sounds like you're getting bored at home. I'm in the process of selling a company, starting another one. Are you interested in working with me on it? And that was Jassby. So I said, yeah, sure. It sounds cool. It sounds like what you're doing is fun. So joined up with him, and it's now, gosh, that was 2018. So it's been 7-ish years.
So, we talk a little bit here at GroupCollect about there being a friendly and healthy rivalry between the departments of sales and marketing, and I think that that's true for most organizations, right? There's a interesting dynamic between the two. It's cool that you have had your time in both, so that you can really understand and behave empathetically of each department, right?
Look, man, I'm a pretty firm believer that if you work for a company, everybody's job is sales, right? Ultimately, sales is the bottom line.
It can be reduced to that, yeah.
Yeah, so everybody's job is sales, right? And so whatever you do, like your job is to help generate business for the company. Like Every role within a company is designed for that. And so I think that it's really important to have these departments play well together. I think it's really important to have a good CEO and a good leadership team that understands that. I will tell you, our CEO and one of my closest friends now is Benny. He is the best CEO I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some great ones. He's one of the smartest human beings on the planet, and he just kind of gets it. So Jassby's his third company. He's been very successful in his previous ones, and he just gets it. And he builds good, strong leadership teams that understand it as well and have all had successful exits and know how to build a company. And so that's kind of where we are and how we got here. And one of the things we do super well at Jassby, and none of us are afraid of change, so we pivot pretty well, right? If something's not working, man, we pivot and change. It's why I was as successful as I was at Monster, by the way. Over 16 years in the .com world, like lots of stuff changes, and so because I was able to adapt to such different environments, I was able to be successful there and move up and all of that fun stuff.
I dig it. So now that we're on the topic of your time here at Jassby and your role of what you're doing right now, let's bring it to the current moment. Here at GroupCollect, we are a group travel software company, working with many travel planners, tour operators. Presumably that is who is listening to this very show, GroupCollect the podcast. That and my mom, I know at least there's one solid listener.
Hey, my wife will totally listen, man. So
Very good, very good. Have her share it with the circle of friends, So for that audience though of tour operators, travel planners, how would you explain to them what is Jassby and why do they need to know about it?
So we're basically a way to provide your allotments, your stipends in a cashless way, which makes it more efficient. It's safer. Look, we're a fintech company. That's what Jassby is. So we really play anywhere where finance and technology intersect, specifically in card programs. So anytime card programs get involved, that's really our area. We started as a direct-to-consumer financial literacy family finance company.
Okay.
And we still dabble in that. Look, ultimately, we still are a financial family finance. We work mostly with families and kids, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't really pay the bills going direct to consumer. It's a super expensive space. Our leadership team was all business to business, partnerships, things like that. And we just started to naturally pivot, right? We started to get a lot of phone calls from different groups, different industries. And the one that we really kind of came into was banks and credit unions, financial institutions, right? Who knew that they needed a way to reach the next generation, but didn't necessarily have the know-how or the bandwidth to do so. And so they would call us and say, "Hey, can we work with you and just use your platform and have that be our family youth offering?" So we did a lot of that, and a rather large player in the educational travel space came across one of those financial institutions and just reached out and called us up one day and said, "Hey, see what you're doing in some other areas." Told me a lot of the problems and issues that are in educational travel, specifically some horror stories, right? Of people walking down the street in New York City or Washington, D.C. with $35,000 of cash in a suitcase, or needing to FedEx overnight shipments of cash, or, "Hey, we had a delay come up and now I've got a teacher that's putting $10,000 on her credit card," right? Like just really crazy stuff. And at that point, it was like 2023, and it just didn't need to be that way. But there's a couple of problems, right? So one, not just any card can be issued to minors. You actually have to have a specific program, a specific card program, a specific BIN card that you can issue to minors. So there's very few people that can actually do that. We are one of them. But really, our goal is to make this a safer, more efficient process and help the educational travel industry just move forward and make it easier for tour operators. Look, my main goal, Eric, I want a platform that works for tour operators, that works for tour leaders and chaperones and schools and students. I want every person in this process to have an easier more fun, more enjoyable experience because of Jassby.
I appreciate all of your insight in that response. And I just have to tell you that, I find myself where I am in this industry right now because I started as a tour manager about 11 years ago, started leading student group tours and the educational ones that you're talking about. And for the entire duration of the time that I've been in that role, because I still do it from time to time now. It's an independent contractor gig, so I can once or twice a year. But even so recently as this year, I have had those instances of having to go to the bank and withdraw that massive, intimidating sum of money, and then travel through the airport with it, and then hope that I'm not accused of being a drug dealer because I'm
Yeah. Or
carrying
money
bricks of
laundering.
cash, or
Yeah.
because I'm a solo traveler going through the airport with copious amounts of cash on me. And all of those situations are harrowing for sure. And so, if I'm understanding Jassby's role in the industry right now correct, it is that y'all are providing an alternative to those situations for the groups, for the tour operators, for the tour managers that mule that cash in that way, right?
It's exactly right. So we issue a debit card to all of those tour operators. I always have one on me, and of course
Nice.
I don't right now. But it's a very smooth looking black card. All of
We're
our
an audio only show, so
Oh,
I mean, you could
perfect.
just
Good,
hold.
even better.
There it is.
And I dressed up. I trimmed the beard.
Yeah, I look
Um,
incredible right now.
yeah, yeah. Greg's very young looking and skinny.
Yeah,
So,
you could tell
um,
from the voice. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, every traveler gets a card. One of the big things that's different from our program, Eric. So when we started this, we were fortunate. We had a great partner that really worked with us to tweak this and understood that, like, hey, we're building something new here. So they were patient with us. They gave us great feedback in terms of what worked and what didn't. And so early on, we had families and travelers register individually for. So if they were going on a trip, now, hey, here's a link. We're not using cash on this trip. We're using Jassby. So register for your Jassby card here, right?
Okay.
And so those families would go in. They would need to register. Now, look, it created issues, several issues. One, there's enough that tour operators, and right, that are
Mhm.
chasing these families for before a trip. Like, to add one more thing on top of that, I just didn't think was a good experience for our partners. Secondly, there's a lot of personal information that you need to put into a system when you're registering for a card. And it goes back to the Patriot Act days. It's called KYC, know your customer. And to your point earlier, it's a way that banks make sure that you're not a money launderer or funding terrorist activity, right?
Right, right.
But with that comes a social security number and an income and a legal address and things that we found that there was a lot of parents that weren't comfortable putting that in so their kid could go to Washington, D.C., right? And so we scrapped it. And we issue cards to the tour operator themselves, and then they hand them out to their travelers however you see fit.
Mm.
Um, why does that matter? So look, the what's in it for me in this. The reason why we tried to get families to register, and the reason why other people that do similar type things want other families to register is straightforward, right? Ultimately, I want that user after the trip ends. I want
Right,
that
right.
that user, and I want to be able to sell them stuff,
You
right?
have other offerings as an
Of
organization.
course.
Your
Yeah, hey,
financial tech. So yeah,
yeah, we knew that your son or daughter went on this trip. They used Jassby. How about mom and dad sign up for a credit card?
for
How
sure.
about,
Yeah,
how about we give you a deal to go on a trip to Florida? That type of stuff, affiliate stuff, right?
for sure.
So when we scrapped it and said, well, we're not doing that, it creates a roadblock. Tour operators understandably are hesitant to give you their rosters. Look, again, all this, like, it's a very tight-knit, awesome community, but ultimately tour operators are competing against each other, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know that I want to upload my roster into a company that I don't really know super well.
Mhm.
Uh, so it created some issues. And so we looked at it and said, you know what? Our goal in this was to make it efficient and easy. This isn't doing it. Let's just issue cards to the businesses. We'll figure out another way to make this beneficial for us. And the answer came down to, Eric, and people ask me all the time when I'm talking to them because our pricing is low. And when you look at it, you're like, well, I get asked almost every partnership call I go on, well, how do you guys make money?
Mhm.
And the answer is the money itself pretty much breaks even, right? So what my partners pay me for a card essentially covers the cost for me to print, order, and ship that card. There are some other things like to keep a card open, and every time a card is swiped, it costs me a little bit of money. I don't believe in nickel and diming my customers, so we have a flat fee per card basis, different membership levels, but a per card fee. Now, all that being said, we don't do this simply out of the goodness of our hearts. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We get benefits in other ways. Those benefits to us are KPIs. So through this program, we issue a lot of cards. We have a lot of money that's put on cards and a lot of money that's spent on cards, all with very little, if any, fraudulent activity. Because it's a clean industry. It's kids that are going to Washington, D.C. and traveling and all this, right? So there's not chargebacks. There's not a lot of fraudulent activity. So it really helps our KPIs without that. And because we play in other areas, specifically branded credit card campaigns with mid-level brands and things like that, where there naturally is more fraud in those areas, this really balances out our numbers in a really nice way. So it helps us. It's, what I was told from the beginning is, look, keep the program in the black and not the red, and we're good.
Right.
So one thing I didn't tell you earlier, you can see these pictures behind me. So I'm a big traveler, so I love it. I've got 4 kids. My kids grew up traveling the world and really got a lot out of those experiences. So I saw, and by the way, every school trip when the sophomores are going to Spain, my kids did it. 8th grade,
they're there.
Sure.
Mhm.
And I saw firsthand how it impacted my kids and their growth. One of my daughters now is studying at JMU. She's studying international relations because of these experiences, and she just wants to travel the world, right? And so I know the power of it, and I know the importance of it, and I want to make sure that all kids have that opportunity. Look, I grew up with a single mom. We didn't have a ton of money. I didn't do any of this stuff, ever. And so I know, I want to make sure that kids have the opportunity to do this and have it and be able to do it in a safe way.
Excellent. Wow. I mean, really, I appreciate the transparency. As you were responding and all of that, that's one thing that I think is really awesome about you and as a representation of Jassby. The transparency is awesome to know, and that this involvement with the student group travel market specifically might not be the most lucrative for y'all financially, but that it's benefiting you in these non-financial ways and really is resulting in what I would classify as a pretty mutually beneficial representation in the industry. So that's very cool.
100%, man, 100%. And look, because of all that, we've got a lot of tour operators that are on our program. We value, man, when I tell you I value my partners, I would do anything for them. I am blessed with a remarkable customer support team and development and technology team. We take feedback from our partners, make sure that the program is working the way they want it to work. So I love this industry. I love the people that I've met. I love the groups that I've joined. And our partners really mean a lot to us. And I hope that if nothing else comes through in this, I want to make sure that comes through because our partners are amazing.
I mean, it is a magical industry. I feel slightly strange. Actually, you know what? I don't feel strange at all saying that. But, working as a tour manager for as long as I have and now being on the technology side of the group travel industry, it's the best way to describe it. There's just something magical about the big group going out, taking a trip together, and all having that shared experience. It really does change lives,
Eric, I'll tell you what else. What amazes me about this industry is, and again, I said it earlier, right? All of these companies compete against each other, but they're friendly and they work together and they meet up at CITA conferences and different events throughout the year. And they really do want everybody to be successful. And it's different than any industry I've ever been a part of. But in a really, I like your word magical, and it sounds so cheesy for us both to say it, but I think it's legitimate, right? Man, just a quick side story. When I joined CITA, and it's one of my favorite organizations I've ever belonged to. I would tell everybody, like I'd get in leadership meetings and I'd talk about it and hey, this is what we're doing. And we're preparing for conference and we're doing all this other stuff. And someone made the comment, they're like, man, they must be pouring some Kool-Aid at this side of stuff. Like you haven't bought into this. And it's I looked at it, I'm like, kind of, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I said that to Carol Ann. I was there, I told her that. She's like, we've heard that before.
yeah.
And
Every time I am training someone new or introducing someone to this industry, I'm like, that's the exact phrase that I end up using is like, I have guzzled the Kool-Aid.
you do.
So I mean, it exists, it's real, and I think that honestly, you nailed it, man. Is that there is almost this collaborative essence or nature to the industry among the community of what would be competitors and truly are competitors still at the end of the day. But there is a collaborative nature that I have never seen in any other industry. And it's almost as if it's like the mission outweighs the business. It's like we are all here to make the magic for the groups. And so because everyone is bought in on that, they're like, well, we're all in the same boat. We're all just trying to do it as well as we possibly can. And that is something that's unique to group travel, man. It totally is. And shout out to Saida. Hopefully I'll see you there later on this year, man.
Oh yeah, man. I'm at all those events. Like I said, I am bought into the side of experience. So
All
you'll see.
over that show floor. I just had a
I do love
couple of follow-up questions for you real quick. So you mentioned that I mean the partnerships are invaluable. You're working with a bunch of tour operators right now. Is there anything that you can get the listeners excited about that you see coming down the pike with Jassby cards that is based on feedback that you've received?
Yeah, sure. So we release stuff regularly. So one of the things that came out recently for us was all of our cards became contactless. So before they were either chip insertable or swipeable, really because of demand from the industry
Yeah.
going to New York City and places like that with the subway systems, it really became important that the cards were contactless, tap to pay. We were going to charge more for it. Honestly, it cost me a little bit more, but it was a nightmare. And so we just rolled it into our existing offering. So all of our cards are now contactless touch to pay.
How cool.
We are constantly updating. So with our services, you get a portal where you manage your travelers, the schools, the cards, the allotments, all of that. We are always tweaking that. So we just released some new enhancements to that in terms of how we handle things like spare cards and locking cards and all of that stuff. So we just released a tweak to that. Our program's pretty complete, man. So,
Yeah.
I used to say, and it would make my team nervous, but until they got it. But I'd always say, look, this checks all the boxes. That's how it's designed. So our updates and tweaks now are more like, okay, how do we make it even better? How do we make it more user-friendly? How do we move this button over here or add this to a drop-down menu? And man, look, I keep talking about youth and student travel. We, by the way, do work with all types of travel and group tour operators.
For sure.
So young adults, even right up to adult. Where it really comes into play, Eric, with adults is for overseas and international trips.
Yeah.
I mean, the adults have their own credit cards and debit cards and all that. We don't charge today. We're not charging international swipe fees like almost every other card does. I can't tell you that we never will.
Yeah.
But because we do pay international swipe fees, but right now we're still able to operate in the black by covering those. It could change in the future, but as of right now, we have no international swipe fees.
Well, that's a nice little nugget of information. Some might want to get it while it's hot. But yeah,
Right.
no, I mean, GroupCollect and specifically our platform, GroupCollect Register, that is for online registration and payment for tour operators. Certainly, obviously, we're working with the student group travel tour operators, but a lot of adult group travel tour operators as well. So, awesome to know. So, I mean, with
Hold on, let me say one thing there because it's relevant here, and
Yeah.
because you asked about things that are coming.
Yeah.
I'll also tell you that I've been fortunate to see some of the sneak peeks of what's coming at GroupCollect. Pretty amazing stuff, and I have a pretty good feeling that Jassby might be prominently involved with that process because we like it enough as a company to get involved as early as possible. So.
Hey, listen, you guys have a track record of successful prospecting, so I like the implications on what that means for us. That you're into what's cooking here in the Group Collect kitchen. So,
Man, I love Group Collect, buddy. So anything I can do with Group Collect, I do. And I love everyone, Corey and Bud and everybody in the organization right down is just amazing. So
oh yeah, man, we're trying to keep it a happy family right now, and no, you're certainly right. We are very excited, and actually to bring it back to CITA, we really hope to later on this year, later on this summer, be showing some of the latest developments in the platforms that we're going to be releasing. So let's talk about if someone were to want to know more about how to form a partnership with Jassby, what would be the steps that they should take?
Sure. So I'll give you a few things. One, right on our website, we actually have a section. So our website is www.jassby.com. You'll see a section for group travel on there. We have quite a bit of information on there, including a partner form that people can fill out that actually goes directly to me, and I will respond to that within 24, 48 hours. I'm also going to give my email address. It's Greg with one G, so Greg Bottenhorn. It's B as in boy, Ottenhorn @jassby.com. And then, look, man, I'll even give you my phone number. That's
Let's
all.
go.
Call me 843-360-5611. And feel free to call. Like I said, I love talking to new prospective partners and all of that. So
For sure.
reach out. We'd love to get you going. The more group tour operators we can work with, the better it is. So bring it on.
Absolutely. You have now made yourself as available as humanly possible here in the year
Right. I try.
2025. I greatly appreciate it. And no, I encourage if you're listening and you are at all interested, I think the thing that would pique my interest the most is how flexible and adaptable you are. So, what I've learned about, tour operators in this industry is that no two are alike. For as collaborative as everybody is, everyone operates their business slightly differently, of course. And so I think that for those reasons, no one should be discouraged about giving Jassby a call and giving Mr. Bottenhorn here a call and seeing exactly how they can make something that custom fits your business and the way that y'all operate.
I love it. Hey, Eric, one thing is you said flexibility, and I think it's important to mention this. So we used to have annual minimums that our partners had to reach in terms of number of cards ordered per year.
Okay.
We have done away with that, mostly because, again, we enjoy working with the small growing companies like we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's now no group minimum. So if you send 200 travelers a year, like reach out. We have something for you. It'll still be good. But if you send hundreds of thousands of travelers, reach out. We've got something for you. We have partnerships right that low and right that high and everything in between. So
Fantastic, man. So absolutely, I hope that many of our listeners are going to be reaching out. Once again, this is Greg Bottenhorn with Jassby. So many financial and technological solutions at your disposal here. So give them a call. The phone number has been administered. I have one final question before we let you go, Greg. What is the world's greatest bourbon?
Oh, so look, it depends on how much you want to spend, right?
Let's
So
say money's no object.
so
World's
look,
greatest bourbon.
if money is no object, you got to get in my world, you got to get into the Pappy Van Winkles, specifically 20-year, the 25 years, excellent. Those are kind of my if money's no object bourbons. I'll give you a secret though. So I'm actually a bourbon enthusiast. I have
We can tell.
hundreds of bottles. I
Okay.
have a bar in my back room with that hundreds of bottles of bourbons. And my house bourbon is Four Roses because it's
Okay.
very affordable
Yeah.
and it's an excellent bourbon. I love anything that comes from the Buffalo Trace or now Sazerac community. So anything that they put out, I enjoy. I'm actually one of the few bourbon enthusiasts that will say I love Blanton's, even though I know I get called a tater for that because it's the trendy one, but I think it's excellent. So
Hater is the derogatory term in the bourbon community.
It basically means you're one of those people that doesn't know what you're talking about, but you want to look cool.
Right.
And look, it's all overpriced right now. That's the other thing. Like, it's all crazy overpriced, and so and Blanton's is definitely overpriced, but it's good stuff. So,
all right. Well, any of the bourbon enthusiasts, even you taters out there, you've got your homework now. You got a few bourbons to taste. Greg, hey, thank you again for your time today, man.
Eric, you too, man. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
All right, everybody. So we're back, and Kathleen, in the month of May, we had ourselves a doozy of a Zoom event where we gathered as many GroupCollect Register users as we could, and we talked about our new GroupCollect Register rewards program. Can you give everybody a quick summary of the GroupCollect Register rewards program and that event?
Absolutely. It was great. So thanks to anybody who joined us for that call. Our rewards program is a point-based program where you earn points based off of different things that are happening in the system.
Criteria. Yeah.
Different criteria.
There's certain achievements, things that you do as a GroupCollect Register user, but they're all of the things that you can earn points for are valued equally.
Yes, absolutely. And depending on where you fall with your points, we have 4 tiers. So if you have not booked a meeting to discuss which tier you are in, please reach out, email me, call me. Eric has sent out an email with a link to create a meeting. So any and all of the ways, if you are interested in hearing more about that, please just reach out and let me know.
Yeah, it is. It's a totally optional rewards program. So if you choose not to be rewarded for using GroupCollect Register, then that is totally an option for you. And furthermore, I will add Kathleen's Calendly link in the show notes. So just look right below where you're listening right now on your podcast player of choice, and you should have a link to the Calendly. Book some time with Kathleen. And if you want to participate in the rewards program, then you'll be able to find out which tier you qualify for and what kind of rewards you can earn. And with that, everybody, we will wrap up today's episode. Thanks again to all of our guests. Thanks to all of our listeners for using GroupCollect platforms and GroupCollect Register. And we just want to remind you, until next month, on behalf of myself and all of my co-hosts today, you gotta stay cool and collecting. This has been a GroupCollect production.